Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me again for our coffee date. Today we are reading chapter 5 in our book, A Time to Dance, Chasing Joy in Difficult Seasons. As you may already know if you're familiar with the book, today is your Moses moment, which is, gosh, I feel like I say this all the time, but this is a really meaty chapter because I was just talking yesterday with my mom about some really neat things that are happening in my dad's ministry right now, and how, when we take steps of faith, it opens up the door for God to show up in his faithfulness. Because a lot of times we have to step into something to create the space for God to show up in that space. Just to kind of say it the way that I was talking yesterday and thinking about it, it feels safe to worship a powerless God. Like, it feels safe to worship a powerless God. Because we feel like if we never step out into the unknown, then we don't have to worry about whether or not God is going to show up in that space. But the more you step into the unknown with God, the more that you realize his faithfulness, and the more that you begin to step out into that unknown, because suddenly it actually feels safe to step into the unknown and safe to expect your powerful God to come through for you. So a lot of times it's our lack of experience or our fear that holds us back from stepping into that. But if we can do like Moses and expect God to show up, we will no longer hold back because it's easier to serve a powerless God. We will step into all that God is calling into, because we will recognize that he is always faithful to show up. Wherever he calls us to, he's going to walk us through, and he's going to show up in the most but God way. So that's what this entire chapter is about. Hi, Mom. Thanks for being here this morning. In case you guys don't know me personally, my mom, she is such a rock for my dad and I. We are both, we're both in ministry, and she's always a rock for us. She is staying up late until 11 o'clock so that she can catch my dad in Africa and support and encourage him, and then getting up at 6:45 to be here every Tuesday and Thursday morning to encourage and support me. So if you don't know my mom, she's an incredible rock. But if you do know my mom, give her a holler and some love today, because she's just always got our back. She's the quiet rock behind each one of us that holds us together. But we're going to read through chapter 5 today, your Moses moment. And it starts off with this verse, which this verse was really just a very strong verse in my life for many years. It still is. But it truly anchored me for many years. And it's Hebrews 11:11 out of the Passion Translation. And it reads, "For the authority of her faith rested in the one who made the promise, and she tapped into his faithfulness." For the authority of her faith rested in the one who made the promise, and she tapped into his faithfulness. And that's such a powerful verse, because if you think about where your faith rests, does your faith rest in what you can see and understand, or does your faith rest in the goodness of the promise keeper, the one who holds your heart? So we're going to read through this chapter. I'll probably stop here and there just because I think this is a really powerful chapter, but I hope you guys enjoy it. Chapter 5, your Moses moment. One of the most challenging barriers to joy is the often overwhelming thought of how. I have frequently faced this doubt in my own journey, and today I'm sharing with you a very real and raw look into what Jesus has been teaching me about faith like Moses. To be honest, just a short while ago, I would have thought sharing such an intimate part of my journey would make me feel too vulnerable. But now I'm dusting off my dancing shoes. Woo! This is the power of writing things down and looking back. Because you can go back to that moment you wrote these things, and you were just dusting off those dancing shoes, and you realize years later the goodness of what he's done in your life. But now I'm dusting off my dancing shoes and waiting for the fulfillment of his promises. God is so good, my friends. On a random drive in April last year, my husband pointed out an old bridge on the side of the road. He knows I can't resist old bridges, farms, mountains, barns, well, anything that has that farm or farmhouse in the mountains feel look. So I looked over with eager anticipation of what he was pointing out. What I never expected was to have God step into that moment and give me a vision. And not just any vision, it was a promise, a very special promise. You see, instead of simply seeing an old bridge beautifully placed in a grassy country field, what I saw in that moment was me on that very old bridge, spinning. Like a carefree child, I was just spinning. My hair was blowing, my heart was lifted. One glance and you could see the genuine, authentic, and deeply rooted joy that spread across my face and overflowed. Happiness, peace, hope, fullness. And then I saw my skirt. It was this long, white, flowing skirt with brightly colored flowers spread all over it. The flowers danced as I spun, and the entire vision was just beautiful and breathtaking. And then right there in the middle of that vision, I heard God whisper, "This is my promise to you." When the vision ended, I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. This was actually my first experience with a God-given vision, and I was quite overwhelmed with emotion. It took me several days to confide in my husband about what had happened on that drive. Why? Because once my feet hit the ground again, once my brain began to truly process his message that day, I found myself facing bucket loads of doubt. In fact, that's probably an understatement. Doubt, or the other D word, disbelief. I quite literally asked God, how? You see, I could not envision a path that led me from this dark place that I felt all the way down to my bones. I can't overemphasize that line. I felt a dark place all the way down to my bones, to where he was showing me and promising me that he was taking me. It just didn't make sense when I tried to process it through my own life experience filter, and I honestly wasn't sure how I felt about that. Each time I revisited the vision in my mind, I would argue with God, "But Jesus, I am way too broken. The scars run way too deep. I've been hurt too much to ever find my way back. I'm too damaged, and I'll never feel that kind of joy again. There's no realistic road that leads to that promise. I can understand and accept a path to happiness again, sure. But joy, childlike joy, heart-lifting, life-changing, skirt-spinning joy, no." I decided that I could not bring myself to believe in that. It simply felt like too much to ask. I wanted to show you guys real quick. In this chapter, I actually drew a picture of what the skirt looks like. I did this because I began to believe so wholeheartedly in this promise that I actually have a color drawing of that skirt. And I know that one day I'm going to walk into a store and I'm going to stumble upon that skirt, and it's going to be in a moment where God is showing me the fulfillment of his promise. And I'm not saying that I don't feel a deep joy today, because I do, but God is still doing a work in me. And one day it's just going to be this really cool but God moment, and I'm going to share it with all of you. So I wanted to put that picture in this book so that when that happens, I could share that with you. One of the things I love about having a relationship with my Heavenly Father is that I've come to realize that he never leaves us on the journey alone, even in moments like those when I doubt him the most. Instead, my grief and disbelief felt overwhelming on that day, and he stepped into my thoughts once more and taught me another lesson about his ever-present faithfulness. Remember the story of Moses and the Red Sea? The Israelites were escaping slavery. The enemy, the king's army, was chasing them, and they were afraid. As we know from the story, they had every right to be frightened, because by all accounts, they were completely trapped. They faced the Red Sea and realized there was no way out. There was quite literally no path that led them from where they were standing in that moment to the other side. But here's the game-changing detail. There was a promise. And God, in all his faithfulness, made good on his promise and created a path where just moments before there was nothing. They stepped out in faith, and they found themselves on a completely different ground. Their enemies crushed behind them. Read that last line again. They stepped out in faith, and they found themselves on completely different ground. God made a way. Do you see where I'm going with this? When God gave me a vision last year and told me where he was taking me, I quite literally cried, how? I couldn't see a path from the dark place where I was standing to the joy that he was promising. In fact, to share with you guys a little bit more of this, I'm going to share an excerpt from my own personal journal after God gave me that vision. I'm broken, like really, really broken. Where there once stood a confident, fun, and playful woman, there now stands a shell. I've become an empty cavern. My laughter feels like a distant memory of someone else entirely. My light spirit and glow have been replaced by dark, heavy clouds that seem to push me deeper into depression and non-existence. And though I fight at times to be the diamond that I once was, I often succumb to the pain and my light disappears again. Will I ever find my way back? In my darkest days, I literally feel like someone has used a spoon and carved out everything inside of me, at least all the beautiful parts. I can't focus, I can't breathe, I can't eat, I can't stop crying, and yet I can't cry anymore all at the same time. I have panic attacks, fear, anger, insecurity, and anxiety beyond comprehension. My soul feels crushed and I feel broken. And then there is Jesus, standing there in the middle of what feels like never-ending waves in a huge storm, one that I feel too weak to fight. And he's giving me a promise, a light, and it suddenly has become my mission to find out how I get from this deep, dark hole to that place that I saw in the vision. It has become my mission to walk in his purpose and find my way back. He's going to make something good from this, and I am going to dance again. Maybe you're feeling that way right now, or maybe you feel like you're standing in the wilderness, alone and unnoticed. Maybe you too struggle with feelings of hopelessness and fear. Maybe you look at this mess all around you and think, I'll never be the same. I'll never heal. I'll never recover. Sometimes I thought the wilderness would swallow me up whole and I would cease to exist, at least emotionally and spiritually. But hear his promise. We serve a heavenly Father that will find us, even in the wilderness. Make that especially in the wilderness. And he will pour his heart over us. He will remind us who we are and whose we are. And if we lean into his goodness and his promises, we will leave this wilderness completely transformed. I will be transformed. You will be transformed. And he will make a way. I'm going to take just a sip real quick. Hold on. I love my coffee cup I reached for this morning. It says wild. Because truthfully, I talk a lot in this chapter about how the Moses moment was, there was no way out. And so they cried out to God to make a way, right? And they believed in God to make a way. But the truth that I have learned since writing this book is that your Moses moment is your entire journey with God. So the Moses moment is never meant to be just that moment where you have no alternative but to cry out to God. Like you're stuck, you're scared, you're whatever it is, and you're just crying out to God. Maybe that's the Moses moment that brought you face to face with his faithfulness. But that Moses moment is meant to be your entire journey. So after you walk through that initial Moses moment and you discover his faithfulness, then he speaks into your life and he calls you into the next Moses moment, which may be, I want you to walk in this calling, or I want you to step into this gift, or I want you to speak out for me. Whatever it is, it's a Moses moment, because every moment that he calls you into where you are dependent solely on his faithfulness feels like the moment that Moses stood on the edge of those waters. It feels like the moment you cry out to him and say, I need you, God. Because the truth is, when you walk in your calling and your gifts, that is all God too. So you are stepping out in nothing but faith, but in doing so, you are opening the door for God to show up in all his faithfulness. And not only in that space does it bless you, but it blesses everyone that gets to walk through that experience with you and that gets to hear about that experience later. So your Moses moment isn't meant to be just that moment of utter brokenness. Your Moses moment is your entire journey. And it goes back to what I talked to at the beginning of this live. You know, it is very easy for us to walk through life serving a powerless God. And maybe you feel slightly offended when I say that. But if you are not walking in the authority that God gave you, if you are not walking into spaces where you can do nothing but cry out to God to show up in faithfulness, because you are asking God, you know, to show up in your calling and to show up and you're stepping into those Moses moments. If you're not doing that, then you're staying in the comfort zone of serving a powerless God, because you don't have to step into those moments that you feel challenged, because you know you can't do this with everything you have. You have to do this with total faith on him to show up in that space. That is when we truly serve a powerful God. It's easy to say, I serve a powerful God. Are you going to step into I serve a powerful God, and allow God to move you into spaces where you have to depend 100% on his faithfulness to walk through for you. So actually that's the next part of this chapter that I'm going to walk into. So I'm going to stop preaching and I'm going to get back to the book. But I'm going to end out what this had here. You see, when difficult seasons leave us beaten and bruised, it's so easy to feel unnoticed, unheard, and even misunderstood. But you are never unseen or unheard by the one who loves you most. He is right there in the little, in the big, in the seen, in the unseen, and he loves you. Whatever you are facing today that is keeping you from believing that such joy is attainable for you, give it to God. Don't listen to the enemy's lies and taunts that you will be forever trapped in this season, because God can make a path and you can be standing on completely different ground tomorrow. Use my story as an example. Ask God to show you his promises for your life and your future, and then believe it, receive it, rest in it, find hope in it, and speak life into it. Then just watch what God can do with your faithfulness. Now, are you ready for the next promise? It's even bigger and better. Expect your Moses moment. You don't have to just hope for your Moses moment, friends. You can expect your Moses moment, because he is a faithful and good father. Sometimes I wish I could travel back in time and witness those moments in the story of the parting of the Red Sea just before the miracle. The palpable tension in the air as Moses stood on the edge of the water, along with the thousands or millions of people that looked to him for leadership. The Bible says that the Israelites shook with fear and panic, expressing anger and hostility towards God and Moses because they felt trapped in this place of hopeless defeat. And yet here's Moses, absolutely unshaken in his faith that God would make a way. You know, I read that line and I wrote that line. And now, having walked through many seasons with God, I wonder if he was truly unshaken, or if, you know, there's still like those little bits of human nerves that come in, but it doesn't change the fact that we have faith that God will show up. But Moses, man, can you imagine? You're standing there and God's given you a word, but all these people, they doubt and they disbelieve, and you have to just anchor in the word God gave you and his faithfulness. Woo! Don't be afraid. Just stand still and watch the Lord rescue you today. The Egyptians you see today will never be seen again. The Lord himself will fight for you. Just stay calm. Exodus 14:13 through 14. Can you just hear them behind you as you're saying this? Just stay calm. I know they're coming toward us and there's no way out, but just stay calm. Sometimes I feel like that God speaks that over my life today. Just stay calm. I know you're terrified and you don't have the words right now, but I will speak into you and I will give you the words. You see, Moses did not just hope that God would provide a way. He knew he would. He expected it because he knew what a faithful father we serve. But not just Moses. Let's hop over to the story of David and Goliath, the well-known story, right? While the entire army of Israelites stood shaking in fear over one man, granted, he was one very large and very strong man, just listen to David's confident words to King Saul. Don't worry about this Philistine. I'll go fight him. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine. 1 Samuel 17:32 and 37. Then he spoke directly to Goliath. Today, the Lord will conquer you. 1 Samuel 17:46. Think those are just the words of an overly self-assured young man puffing his chest before battle? No way. David was absolutely confident that the Lord would deliver. Wow, this chapter is so powerful. I'm in a season right now where God is calling me into something very new, and I haven't shared it with you guys here yet. I will be sharing it next month. But these words are powerful no matter where you are in your journey with God. The truth is, I wish I had that kind of confidence with my giants, with my healing, with my hope for things that God's promised me. But I often find myself looping back to anxiety and fear, the comfortable fear and anxiety and the questions that go along with it. But how, God, how? I just don't see it. And here's what he keeps patiently and lovingly reminding me. When our Heavenly Father gives us a promise, we aren't always provided with the details, the how or the when. But one thing is always certain. He always delivers. There's a definition, I wish I had it in front of me to give you. There's a definition of hope that Bill Johnson uses, and it is so beautiful. He said, hope is the expectations of things not yet seen, but promised to us by God. It's not the Bible verse. It's basically the way he describes it is, hope is like, we don't have to hope like we think of in our terms where we're like, I really hope this happens. I hope I win the lottery. Like there's a small chance, but hey, there's a chance, right? Like Jim Carrey. So you're saying there's a chance. That's how we think of hope. But hope, when it comes to our relationship with God, is not like that. Hope is where we can wait in expectation for that moment when God's going to come through. And the way I think about it is, hope is like a surprise birthday party where Jesus is the birthday guest, right? Like we're preparing the party with full expectation that he's going to show up in that moment. And so whatever it is, the promise he's given you in your life, we can prepare for it with the type of hope that has full expectation that God is going to come through on that promise, because where he makes a promise, he is going to come through. So it's not a hope like a hope we have in winning the lottery. It's a hope like a preparing or waiting in expectation that God is going to come through. He delivered that day for Moses. He delivered that day for David. He will deliver for me, and he will deliver for you. Do not let your confidence rest in what you can see and understand, but rather in what an amazing, loving, and faithful Father you serve. Even if you cannot see the path, expect that he will make the way. Expect your Moses moment. Expect your David moment. Expect your moment, because what he has promised, he will be faithful to deliver. I encourage you to write a statement of confidence over whatever you're facing. Even if you don't fully believe it, write it and pray over it. Allow God to move through it. Allow him to show you that you can rest in him. He will fight for you. He will make a way. He is the God of miracles, the God who makes the unbelievable believable, the God of paradigm shifts, and the God who delivers. I'd like to conclude this chapter with some additional verses in hopes that they encourage your heart today. You guys ready? Against all odds, when it looked hopeless, Abraham believed the promise and expected God to fulfill it. He took God at his word. Romans 4:18, the Passion Translation. That's what we have to do in order to hold on to a promise, in order to hold on. I wrote in my Bible one time, how do we hold on to hope, God? I drew a picture where I was holding water in my hands, and hope felt like the water. It felt like it just poured through the cracks in my fingers. And no matter how much I cupped my hands together, I couldn't hold on to the hope. But this verse tells us exactly how to. Against all odds, when it looked hopeless, Abraham believed the promise and expected God to fulfill it. He took God at his word. That is how we hold on to the hope. We take God at his word. We believe that he is the promise keeper, because because he is, and you are safe to anchor in that. And when you take God at his word, you suddenly can hold on to that hope and wait with expectation for God to come through and fulfill every promise he has made to you. The second verse, when Yahweh delights in how you live your life, he establishes your every step. This goes into the part where we talk about in the journey. The journey is not just meant to be, we cry out in our Moses moment of breaking down, but also we cry out in our Moses moment of walking through every step with him. We don't just call him up when things go bad. We talk to him every day in the good, in the ugly, in the mundane, in the big, in the little, every single step. I am the Lord who opened a way through the waters, making a dry path through the sea. But forget all that. It is nothing. So hear this. I am the Lord who opened a way through the waters, making a dry path through the sea, right? For Moses. But forget all that. It is nothing compared to what I am going to do. For I am about to do something new. See, I have already begun. Don't you see it? I will make a pathway through the wilderness and create rivers in the dry wasteland. Isaiah 43, 16 and 18 through 19. I hope you guys heard that as a promise spoken directly to you. See, I've already begun. Do you not see it? I'm going to make a pathway through the wilderness. I'm going to create rivers in the dry wasteland. He will make a path for you. Through your wilderness or out of your desert, he will make a way. When you go through deep waters, I will be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire of oppression, you will not be burned up. The flames will never consume you. Isaiah 43, 1 through 2. That's his promise to you. It may bend you. It may be hard for a while, but I will not let it break you. I will get you through this. But those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. Isaiah 40, 31, New Living Translation. And I'm going to end this chapter with the same verse that we started with, friends, because I believe so much in the power of his promises. And I think you guys might want to jot this verse down. For the authority of her faith rested in the one who made the promise, and she tapped into his faithfulness. Hebrews 11:11. I'll read that again. For the authority of her faith rested in the one who made the promise, and she tapped into his faithfulness. Hebrews 11:11. And that's where it all comes from. You take God at his word, you tap into his faithfulness, and you make him the authority, the anchor to everything you step out in, because you know that you serve a God that is faithful to come through whenever he promises you something. Whether you are in a season of healing and he's promising to bring you through that, whether you are in a season of stepping out in your gifts and your callings, he's going to be there for that too. Whatever it is you are stepping into, know that you serve a powerful God and walk in that. Don't just say you serve a powerful God. Step out, trust him, and have faith that he's going to show up for you. Okay, so Thursday, we're going to talk about chapter 6, which is when feelings threaten your healing. The Christian community talks a lot about feelings. Feelings are important. Feelings can also mislead us. So there was a season in my healing when feelings would consume me to the point that I would be walking forward in healing, and suddenly I would be back down in this really dark place. And I was in this cycle where I couldn't figure out how to get out of that. And it would make me where I was stepping forward in healing, and I would be terrified, like I was watching my back for the feeling that was suddenly going to throw a bag over my head and just suck me right back down. And I had to take authority over that. And I didn't know how, and God had to show me how. But as he showed me how, I began to write, so that if that's something that you struggle with as well, that's something we can walk through in this chapter together, because there's a powerful moment in this chapter where I talk about, I could feel when those feelings were coming on, and they would start at my toes, and they would just like almost like a vine just begin to wrap up my leg until they had me sucked together so tight I couldn't breathe. And that's a powerful feeling. And a lot of us who go through, whether it be depression or anxiety, a lot of us who have experienced that and walked through that, that's a very familiar experience. And so I think this chapter can be very powerful if that is something that you struggle with. But thank you guys so much for showing up this morning. Chapter 5 was really powerful, your Moses moment. Friends, no matter where you are in your journey, let that chapter speak to you, chew on it, think about it, pray over it, talk to God about it, and ask him where he is asking you to trust him today. Thank you for having a coffee date with me. I hope it was as wild for you as it was for me. Have a beautiful and blessed Tuesday, and I will see you guys here Thursday morning.